Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. So, changing the colour scheme in a Linux terminal. It's a straightforward, quick and easy process. At least that's what I thought at the beginning of this week. Little did I know that it would lead to a condition called OCT, Obsessive Colour Tweaking. Unfortunately, that's what I found out. So let's discuss it after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So, a few weeks ago, I mentioned on one of my videos that I was going to learn how to use Vim, and I was going to force myself not to use Nano. And that's gone quite well. I'm certainly enjoying using it now that I'm more familiar with it. I've also stuck with the tiling window manager, BSPWM. And again, I've acclimatized myself to using a tiling window manager, and I've probably been with this 5 or 6 weeks now, and it's starting to feel like second nature, and I do like the way it handles multi-monitors. Using a straightforward window manager and Vim, though, brings up questions that I'd not had to worry about before. As you are probably aware, I am a big Mate fan as far as desktop environments go, and theming a desktop environment, well, for me, it was little more than choosing a theme and choosing my icon set, which generally was something like using the Arc Dark theme and the Papyrus icons. Job done. A few quick clicks. It's not quite as simple when it comes to theming a window manager and theming a terminal. It is in theory, but that theory, in my case anyway, didn't turn into practice. The one thing that I've found in using Vim and a tiling window manager is I've started to use the terminal a lot more, which I think is a good thing, because commands that I'd forgotten about completely, I've now relearned, and I've started to explore other apps that run in the terminal. So I decided a few days ago, well, let's start with Vim, and let's have a look at some of the colour schemes that are there to see what I can actually do with it. Right, so let's start with Vim. There are literally hundreds of colour schemes for Vim, and it's difficult to know what each one looks like from the descriptions, and so my first port of call was this really useful web page, vimcolors.com, which gives you a view of what they look like, and you can search for the vast majority of colour schemes that are out there. So you can see I've just searched blue here, and it's come up with a range of colour schemes there. I could search for a popular one called Inkpot, and there you go. Or the one that everybody seems to use, Dracula. Okay, I'm not that keen on the lilac, so it's not one for me. But nevertheless, yeah, there's a lot there. Grovebox is another one that people seem to use, which is a lot more subtle. So the question was, which scheme do I use? So let me switch over to my terminal, and I'll open up my vimrc file as a bit of an example. First thing I did was I installed some colour schemes. Now, there's a dozen or so schemes already included in Vim, but the AUR contains the package that contains many, many schemes. Just to give you an idea, these are all the colour schemes on my system at the moment. And as you can see, there are many. My goodness, you could go on and on and on. So how did I choose? Well, I spent hours looking through different schemes. So you can start with things that look like that. Not for me. That's the blue scheme. Or you can go to, let me see, Grovebox, which is quite nice. I quite like that. It's quite subtle. Or a 24-bit scheme, One Dark, I think it's called. Oops, I've obviously not spelt that correct. Still a bit too much lilac in there for my liking. What about Desert? Again, quite nice. What about Solarized? These are all popular schemes. Again, we've got the lilac there. Bottom line, after many, many hours of fiddling with all these themes, to actually come across something that I liked, I settled on a colour scheme called Nord, which is really subtle and isn't in your face. It's just a straightforward, easy on the eyes scheme. Okay, so that's the Nord colour scheme. Really easy to set in Vim. I just set colour Nord in my Vim RC file. The problem was that was just the start of it. So took a little bit longer than I'd hoped, but I finally decided on the Nord colour scheme. In fact, let me just move across to their website, and it's a really nice colour palette. 16 colours, but I believe it will support 256, so variations in between. I find it really easy on the eyes. The problem, and here's the problem, is that different terminals will tend to display colour schemes in different ways, depending upon their capabilities. So some colour schemes, such as One Dark, is a 24-bit colour. And for that, you need to have a terminal that supports 24-bit true colour. So you're looking at the likes of Alacritty and even Terminator. XFCE, I don't think does support true colour, and there are others out there. But they all display the colours in a different way. So needless to say, I had to then move on to experiment a little. I'd been using Terminator with BSP WM, so I installed a few other terminals, and I tried Alacritty and the XFCE 4 terminal and XVT. And I found that overall Terminator was still the one that seemed to display the colours in the most vibrant way. Trouble was, as I started to read up more and more about these colour schemes, it seems quite important that the colour scheme that you have set in your terminal matches the colour scheme that you have set in Vim. And I didn't have particular schemes set in any of my terminals. I just tweaked a few of the colours, and they were bleeding into the colour scheme. They were affecting it. And that apparently is a common problem. So, before making a final choice about which terminal to use, I decided that what I would do is I would install the Nord theme for each of the terminal emulators I was testing. So Terminator, the XFCE terminal, URXVT and Alacritty. Now, in itself, you would think that's fairly straightforward. The problem being, there isn't a standardized way to install a color scheme in each terminal. So let me just give you an example. So here we are back on my terminal screen. Well, as far as URXVT is concerned, it uses your XResources file. And the XResources file looks something like this. And in order to make URXVT usable, you have to install some Perl extensions so that you have copy and paste, and you can easily resize your text should you need it. And I was lucky to find a Nord color scheme, which I added to my XResources file. And yeah, everything worked well. I also managed to find a Nord theme for XFCE4, a Nord theme for Terminator, and a Nord theme for Alacritty, all of which are in a slightly different format, and all of which are configured in different places. So that took a while to get everything right. Now, finding the different Nord themes for different terminals was relatively straightforward. The easiest way is to do searches on GitHub, for example, and I will include these links in the video description. I found a GitHub page here by LBRY or LBRY, which contains a whole range of different Terminator themes that are really simple to install. And there's another page on the Alacritty wiki on GitHub, which contains, again, an absolute load of themes that you can apply to Alacritty's configuration file. While I was going through this, though, I came across a really interesting page which can do a load of things, but does tend to drive you further down that vortex of COT or OCT, obsessive color tweaking. And it's called terminal.sexy. Now, one of the things that this can do, you can create your own color scheme on here, but you can also import a color scheme. Now, I'd managed to find an XResources Nord color scheme by Arctic Ice Studio on GitHub. And so when I went to terminal.sexy, all I had to do was import that by copying and pasting the XResources color scheme and clicking on import. It then shows you how a terminal will actually look, and it allows you to export it in a range of different ways. So if I went to Terminator and I clicked export, there you go. That's what would go in your Terminator configuration file. XFCE4, again, there's the output that you would put in your XFCE4 terminal config. Or last but not least, the scheme for Alacritty. I have to say that I found this after I'd found specific schemes on GitHub. But if you can find an XResources file for a particular color scheme, terminal.sexy will let you convert it into a whole range of different schemes for different browsers. Again, I will leave the link to this in the video description. Goes without saying, of course, that this just opened up another gateway to a vortex that was difficult to escape, because once I'd found the terminal.sexy website, well, again, I spent several hours playing with this. All good fun, though. Bottom line, though, was I'd installed Nord on all the terminals. I did a recomparison, And then, strangely enough, although I thought Alacritty was pretty close in terms of the way that it displayed colour themes in Vim, ultimately I decided to stay with Terminator. It still, to my eyes anyway, looks more vibrant. Once I'd sorted out the terminals, I then turned to my desktop. And the first thing that I noticed was my polybar wasn't the right colour. So that was relatively easy to sort out. I went into my polybar config and I took a colour from the main Nord palette that I was using as the background colour in my terminal, and I used that. I also changed the little accents under each of these little menu items. Okay, so all good, so you would think. But no, I'd started, so I'd finish. Now, as you know, I use Rofi quite a lot these days. In fact, I'm going to do a video on that quite shortly. But that didn't really match the Nord colour scheme. Well, it does now. I found a Nord colour scheme for Rofi as well. So what else did I do? Well, believe it or not, I managed to find a Nord theme for Firefox. And I managed to find a Nord theme for Genie. So all very, very matchy-matchy. Problem being, the GUI applications that I use the most all seem to match the palette, and I was happier and happier. But what I wasn't happy with was the GTK theme that was in PC Man FM that I tend to use as my GUI file manager. Now, currently, there doesn't seem to be a GTK theme out there that's appropriate to use for the likes of PC Man FM. There is one that's designed for GNOME, but it wasn't quite to my liking. So this is where the madness continued. So in the true spirit of Linux, if there isn't a solution out there already that suits, well, get on and create one. That was my argument. So I found myself a great little application called Oomox. Whether it's actually called Themix or Oomox, I'm not sure, because in the Arch package manager, there seems to be a mixture of themes that bring it all together. But anyway, bottom line is, with this, you can take a number of standard themes and you can customize them to your heart's content. Now, I've not actually done that much playing with this, but what I have done is I have played around with the icon theme for Arc Darker, and this Oomox app allows you to export either an entire theme, which is quite complicated to get all the colours right, or you can just do the icon set. So I just created an icon set to start off with and exported it. So how does that now look? Well, it looks like that, which I'm really quite happy with. The colours of the themes are, well, it's a blue that matches the accents on my polybar, and I've used the papyrus icon set because you can choose whichever icon set that you want here. As you can see, you've got papyrus, or you can have Numix, gnome colors, or Arch droid icons, and you can play with this to your heart's content. I've not even started playing with designing a theme that I am happy with. So it looks like I've well and truly caught OCT, obsessive colour tweaking. It's one of those things that if we weren't in this period of lockdown madness, I would never have started. But it's past many a happy hour. You can literally get very OCD about it. And I'd like to think that it's not going to be like that for me. But what it has done is it's taken me down paths where I'm learning new things all the time. Needless to say, I've only been working on BSPWM so far. We haven't even got to OpenBox and Tint2 and everything else, so I'll no doubt do that. But this was just a quick video, really, to show you what I've been doing for the last couple of days, and I suppose to partly explain as well why this video is a day later than I've been producing videos during the lockdown. I try and plan on Monday, but Monday just disappeared, playing with Oomox, etc. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget, you can join me on LBRY and also on the OldTechBloke Facebook group. Other than that, I hope you're staying well, and I'll see you again in a couple of days.